there, Sagittarius. Welcome to your August 2019 General Tarot reading. It's Raina here, your fellow Sagittarian. Ready for, I'm going to say, ready for action. A lot of fire. Well, not me, Well, I can say now I can officially say a lot of fire, because at first I got 2 cards and then I got 3. So Wands is fire and we are fire. And this is the back of the card. This is the Wild Unknown deck. The heart of the matter is the Son of Wands, which goes along with the Knight of Wands. And Knight of Wands, it does connect with Sagittarius. Well, isn't that something? And Knight of Wands is a very adventurous card. So in August, we have a lot of Leo energy, and that is fire as well. And the other fire sign is Aries, but that Leo energy, which for Sag is in the 5th house of romance. So actually the Knight of Wands can be somebody who is just footloose and fancy-free in a sense, and feeling kind of like adventurous, not necessarily in that mode of settling down. If you are getting out of a long-term relationship, perhaps this is that feeling of, now I'm finally free. That could be definitely what's going on, and you just feel like, woo, let me just enjoy this feeling. And let's just keep going so I can get more information here. In the past position, we have the 2 of Cups. This can be a card of committing to somebody. This can be a card of perhaps reconnecting with somebody. I would, if I had to pick one or the other, I would say it's probably that, where you are reconnecting with somebody from your past, and that is creating that sense of being very kind of enlivened by it. Now, in that scenario, you could be involved with another relationship at the same time. So that, I wouldn't say that you were footloose and fancy-free necessarily in that case. Although you could be. You could be like, okay, now I've gotten divorced, now I'm going to call up this person. And it's not necessarily something that I would attribute to one particular scenario. The other thing too is, if this is a work matter, this can be something where you feel this, maybe you have committed to someone. And usually when I see commitment with the 2 of Cups, I'm thinking of a personal relationship. But I can generalize it to just commitment, making that decision. 2s are about making a decision or having a decision to make. And committing to something and then feeling, itchy feet as soon as you've committed, because you realize that you are somebody who craves a lot of freedom. And this is true of Sagittarius in general. Even in the workplace, it may be hard for you to commit. I always get people, whenever I make statements like this, in spite of what sign I'm talking about, they say, no, that's not true, I'm like this. No, I mean, this is, the 12 signs are archetypes, so they're going to have certain, it's like a mold, but it doesn't mean that you're going to fit that mold, because you have other placements besides the sun. So in any case, there's like this combination of a feeling maybe in the recent past of wanting to commit, or in fact committing, but then also that desire for freedom. I don't know if it's a conflict though. It can be like maybe you feel so excited about reuniting with somebody. The higher message is the Death card. So even if you are still coupled with somebody and you have reconnected with an ex, the Death card is saying that it's all over but the shouting with that primary relationship. So not to say that I condone stepping out on a marriage or equivalent relationship, not at all. But if you are feeling guilty, it's, what you should acknowledge is that your relationship has reached the limits of what it can provide you and maybe provide the other person, and that's okay. That it doesn't mean that anybody did anything wrong. It might have been that your relationship was just there for a season. And I really get more of a personal relationship type of feeling here than necessarily a work situation. I mentioned work because I know some people are not interested in relationship readings. I don't, these are general tarot readings. I don't try to steer them in one direction or the other, but I'm just looking at the cards as a whole. So I'm just going to keep going. And the card that crosses you is the Empress. Now, there's different meanings to this, especially depending on your gender, for instance. The Empress in the upright position is the Earth Mother archetype. I was joking once about her having watermelons on her gown, and somebody said, no, those are pomegranates, and they told me that that's a symbol of fertility, because a lot of seeds, right? Of course, watermelon would have a lot of seeds too, unless they were hybrid watermelons. But anyway, I digress. So what that means is that it's the mother archetype in general, but also the artist, the creator. And the Empress is also connected to, it's number 3 in the major arcana. So number 3 is a number of abundance, okay? We are in a 3 universal year, and so I have been really tuned into the number 3 this year because I'm kind of a numbers person. And I really have been wondering how this is going to play out for all of us. Because looking at some of you, we have Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is supposed to also produce, for especially Sagittarians, this great abundance and yada yada, right? And you may be feeling, okay, where's mine? I haven't experienced it. And I think that in general, because it is a number of creativity, look at how you create your own reality. What have you birthed into existence, Sag? Have you been doing your homework? Have you been doing, what you need to do to make these things happen? Or have you been sitting there twiddling your thumbs? And, an artist has to create. Somebody who wants to attract abundance has to create something to attract. Has to, even energetically, you have to be in a position to attract. You can't just sit there and think negative thoughts. That'll actually repel things. So looking at it from that standpoint, I'm seeing like the can-do approach. And I just want that feeling of, for you to ask yourself in terms of a relationship, have you felt that you gave to that relationship? If there's a relationship, in other words, that has that's all over but the shouting. Perhaps you have not nourished that relationship because you're looking for the next bright, shiny object. Sag is, I think, a sign, as a mutable sign. I think mutable signs sometimes have the tendency to be fickle, of kind of like going from one craze to the next. Knight of Wands, which is the central theme here, is not stable. Is very chaotic. And you may be like trying to hitch your wagon to something, but you're really in a state of frenzy. And I'm talking about the ones who may be feeling like they had a negative relationship. You have to, go back to yourself and what you're bringing to the table. Because if you're looking for somebody else to be your savior, that's not going to work. And also with the Empress, it's like if you're a woman and you want to be a mother, actually I keep trying to limit it to women. Mothering, a man can mother, a man can nurture. Mothering is nurturing. So a man can do that just as well. If you are a person who is looking to have a child, you have to make sure that the person that you're attracted to is stable. That goes without saying. I mean, if you want to get involved with somebody who's unstable but you don't want children, then have at it. But if you want to bring children into the world, you do not want a person who demonstrates instability. So there could be for some of you who are deliberately, like, you're at a stage in your life where you're like, I want to have children. This person may not be it simply because they're not interested in commitment. But they may be a nice shot in the arm. They may be a nice fun diversion for you temporarily. Just make sure with this Leo energy towards, in the beginning portion of the month, that you're protected during sexy time, because there is the tendency or the possibility of fertility happening, or what do you call it? I don't know why. I mean, this is the middle of the day. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time, like, getting out my thoughts. But, conceiving children is easier at this time, because this is the kind of specialty of the 5th house, and you have a lot of energy here. And the moon is here, so the moon is very fertile, okay? The other thing, too, is that you may be acting against your nature. The Empress in reverse, to me, is like a hoochie mama. So don't be a hoochie mama, Sag, unless, you own it and you realize that you're just doing this temporarily. Because what I mean by that is that the Empress in the reversed position, how I'm reading this particular card in this position of the challenge, is a woman who uses her feminine wiles in a destructive way. And Sagittarius is a masculine sign. So Sag women tend to me, being one myself and remembering my younger days, tend to be kind of disconnected from that aspect of life. And if you're like me with Taurus rising, this can be really kind of comical, because I remember just wearing really sexy clothing and just being totally disconnected from it. Knowing what I was doing, but still not really understanding what message I was presenting the public. So knowing that I was wearing revealing clothing and not minding it, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if that's not consistent, if that's not consistent with what you stand for, then you're sending a mixed message. And you will tend to attract people that are interested in what you're advertising. And that is a very obvious, simple conclusion to draw. But you would be surprised at how many Sagittarian women who may engage in this behavior and are scratching their heads and not understanding and connecting the dots. So, yes, we are flexible as Sagittarius, being mutable signs. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. But some people are very compartmentalized, and they go with what they see, and they treat the person based on what they see. And so there may be like psychological reasons why you feel the need to kind of engage in wanton behavior. You may be like just feeling a sense of having been oppressed for a long time and needing that kind of like downtime. And as long as you can play the game and don't get caught up in it, then good for you. But if you're a woman specifically, you may underestimate how important it is for you to be in a relationship with somebody that is multidimensional, that may not be enough for you. So don't be surprised if it backfires on you. The Empress in reverse is also a card that can be like misinterpreting love, I think, in a way. I was getting a little bit distracted because I was thinking about the Death card. And you may be a widow, and it may not be that you've gotten divorced, a widow or a widower, and you feel a sense of release because now you are single, and especially if you did not necessarily have a happy marriage. Some people assume that when somebody is a widow, that they are grieving deeply the loss of their partner. They may not be. They may have been taking care of somebody who was very difficult and did not treat them right all along. And this may be the first time when you feel that sense of freedom in many years. And so the temptation may be to go back to the past, to somebody that you really loved. And oh my goodness, I would hope for anybody in that position that you could definitely connect with somebody from your past that you always held a torch for. But with the Empress in reverse, don't turn your back on love, because you're kind of reacting, you're in grief and don't know it. Because even if you didn't have a happy marriage, you still had a loss. So it may be very complicated. There might be contradictory things going on emotionally for the person. The advice is the Father of Wands. This is the King of Wands. This is about taking charge of your life. And this can be for different reasons. Maybe you feel that you are being played by somebody. The Knight of Wands might be a different person. Might be the person that you're interested in. And you may feel like that person is holding the key right now to your life, in the sense of, especially if this is like somebody that you used to be with, that you have always idealized a relationship, but kind of forgot why it ended. It may have ended because of womanizing. And if so, it would be really crazy to assume that anything had fundamentally changed, unless you knew for a fact that the person had totally changed their life. And it's kind of interesting how certain people will, present themselves as I'm a changed man, for instance. And what's the change? The change is only that there's really no fundamental change. They have just grown older, let's say, and they become more sophisticated in trying to hide their behavior. The Father of Wands, as the King of Wands, could be that you need a mature version of this Knight of Wands person. That you really love the energy that Knight of Wands person brings to the table, but there's an immaturity there. And they may be like over 40. Chronologically, the Knight of Wands is supposed to indicate early adulthood. I always semi-joke and say, even in the traditional meaning, because of the nature of our society these days, we could even be talking about somebody up to the age of 40. But the more that I think about it, the more I think that we shouldn't get hung up on chronological age, but talk about the person's maturity level. And the Knight of Wands may just be like somebody who you really connect with and you think is really a lot of fun to be around, and they're very energizing to you, but you realize that they have the one fault, if you will, where they just can't seem to stay faithful, or they just can't seem to settle down in general. And you have to be able to understand why it's not enough that you really like their personality, that you need that commitment. The Knight of Wands, the Father of Wands, can be an aspect of you that you are able to be the adult in the room and to say, I really care about you, but I can't keep investing energy in this because I know it's not going to lead to anything specific, permanent, if you will. And the outcome is the Mother of Wands, which translates to the Queen of Wands. So we get the Father and the Mother, the King and the Queen of Wands. This is that's another sign that's associated with Sagittarius. So since most of you are women, this is the woman who is a career woman, is able to exude confidence and still be a woman. I think with the Empress in reverse, for some of you, you may have mixed feelings on femininity and kind of that, what makes a woman, or the divine feminine. And I know for myself that I have always related better to men. And when I was a kid, I was a tomboy, and I always liked to hang around guys when I was even older, even into my 20s. And I always looked to women. I always thought women were the enemy in a lot of ways. And I'm pretty sure that if you're a woman, a female Sagittarian, you probably agree with me more times than not. And I have a lot of feminine energy in my personal planets too, but still, that's how I've always operated. And one of the things that you can learn as you get older is that you can be vulnerable and even want to have traditional qualities. Maybe you want to become a mother and still be independent and even still have a career. You may alter that for a while if you're carrying a child and delivering a child and wanting to raise that child in the beginning, at least before they go to school, but you always have that desire to have that career. You can still find ways to bridge the gap and to not feel like you have to just totally abandon all your other dreams. But also, I think, just in general, that fire energy can be very aggressive. And, you know, especially nowadays, they're almost encouraging women to be aggressive when it's okay to be passive, to not do, to yield. You know, that doesn't make you a wimp or a woman who's like a pushover. Don't believe that kind of hype, you know. But it's not lost on me here that I have the Father and the Mother of Wands. So to me, this can speak to who's going to be the best father for your child. And how can you be the best mother? And if you're dating somebody that doesn't, you know, fill that bill, then wait for the right one. Don't get into that desperation mode and then just be indiscriminate about it. Okay, that's what I have for you, Sagittarius. I hope that you got something out of this. I realize this was pretty specific to certain people. But if you'd like a private reading, the link to my website is below. It's rainamoonastrology.com. Take care. Bye.